BoJack Horseman. What a journey, and as I'm making this video, we've got only 8 more episodes until the show is over forever. It shouldn't be any surprise now that we're in the endgame that fans and audiences all have their own takes on what's going to go down. But there is one overwhelming idea that I'm seeing over and over again. So this is where I want to give a quick trigger warning to the audience. This video does talk at length about suicide. And as you may have guessed, the idea I'm seeing a lot of is that BoJack is going to kill himself at the end of the series. I think something like 40% of my comments for my last few BoJack videos are suggesting this idea, but today I want to explain to you why I really think this is not what we should expect from the end of this incredible series. So spoilers for all of BoJack Horseman seasons 1 through 6 part 1 ahead, and let's just dive into it. Obviously, when people assert that BoJack will kill himself by the end of the show, there are actual reasons for this. The series has a lot of allusions to drowning, even in the opening title sequence. Back in season 1's episode Downer Ending, BoJack talks about how he could see the end of his life happening.
I go for one last swim. I know I can't make it back to shore. I'm too weak, too tired. So I just let the water take me under.
In season 3, after being nominated for an Oscar, BoJack drives his Tesla into his pool while intoxicated, in what many consider to be a suicide attempt. This came on the heels of a conversation he had with Diane, who suggests that without finding any more meaning in his life, he might take his own, even after winning an Oscar.
And you're gonna be so miserable you'll want to kill yourself. And you're gonna have nobody left to stop you.
Then there's the major parallel between BoJack and Secretariat. After Secretariat was banned from racing, he jumped off the George Rogers Clark Memorial Bridge in Louisville. Secretariat was BoJack's hero growing up, and BoJack even went on to play him in the Secretariat movie, or at least his likeness did. So, given the strong connection between the two, I think it's fair to think that maybe BoJack would meet a similar fate as his hero. When BoJack was 9 years old, he sent a letter to Secretariat, and Secretariat responded on the Dick Cavett show. He asked him what he should do when he gets sad, which is a heartbreaking question for a 9-year-old to ask, but he gives this response.
Don't you stop running, and don't you ever look behind you. There's nothing for you behind you. All that exists is what's ahead.
This advice illustrates Secretariat's philosophy in life, and it's further cemented by the fact that a few months later, he jumped off that bridge. Secretariat was banned from racing. Because he was unwilling to look back, he saw nothing ahead of him, and he killed himself. This is advice that BoJack internalized for most of his life. With the end of season 6 part 1 showing how BoJack's dark past is about to catch up with him and potentially destroy his future, I definitely understand why people think this philosophy on life will ultimately lead to BoJack's suicide. But here's the thing, I don't think that's how BoJack is living his life anymore. And I think the journey of self-realization we've seen in season 6 part 1 changes things. In season 5, after the events on set with Gina, we see BoJack being crushed by the weight of his own guilty conscience. And while we do see him want to get the truth about his actions out there, it doesn't seem like it's because he's gone through any self-actualization. It's presented as though he's just searching for a way to lift the weight of his guilt off of his own shoulders.
No one is gonna hold you accountable. You need to take responsibility for yourself.
I don't know how to do that.
To say it more plainly, it's a selfish desire. He's trying to alleviate his own guilt, not make amends or take responsibility for his actions, so he can continue to move forward as his and Secretariat's philosophy dictates. Through rehab, and how we've seen BoJack grow in season 6, this seems to have changed. BoJack is no longer only looking ahead of him, and it's presented as a genuine fundamental change in BoJack's attitude and philosophy. He's actively thinking about the people who are important to him in his life, and he's making good on their friendship without looking for anything in return. He's thinking about his friendships outside of immediate interaction with those people, like when he pitches Todd's dating app to Maude at Cinnabunny. Can you imagine BoJack of past seasons to have had this kind of insight into his friends' needs and wants? BoJack visits Diane in Chicago, and besides being there for her and giving her some helpful advice, he also cleans up her entire apartment and leaves before she ever sees that he did this for her. The old BoJack would have for sure sought out the satisfaction of seeing Diane's reaction to his good deed. I think this really represents his changed philosophy in life. Instead of seeking out the satisfaction that he knows would be ahead of him, he lets it live in the past. He's even willing to give Mr. Peanut Butter that crossover episode he's always wanted, something that wholly represents the past for both of them. He's allowing important aspects of his past to set up shop in his present and future. Maybe most importantly, BoJack is actively attempting to forge a meaningful relationship with his sister Hollyhock. In so many ways, Hollyhock is representative of BoJack's past. She's obviously literally related to him, but also to his father. And the majority of the time that BoJack spent with Hollyhock was time he also spent with his mother. BoJack's parents are two figures in his past that he has actively run away from for a huge portion of his life, and this has affected his relationships.
Wouldn't I keep her at arm's length, desperate for her to love me, but unwilling to be vulnerable enough to allow her to hurt me?
Moving towards a real relationship with Hollyhock showcases once again that he isn't just looking ahead anymore, but looking behind him for meaning. There's even a moment in the scene with Princess Carolyn that I think represents the writers flat out saying that BoJack's path has been altered. For a lot of viewers, this horse version of a David Hockney painting was representative of BoJack's eventual demise. When he gives the painting to PC, her daughter Ruthie accidentally tears the drowning horse off of the painting entirely. There's a lot of very obvious commentary in this scene about what it means for BoJack and his own narcissism, but I could also see this being a little nod to the fact that this image no longer represents BoJack drowning or killing himself. He's rejected that future. He's changed. That's not to say that I think all of the allusions to BoJack's death by his own hand were just smoke and mirrors. I do think it's a majorly important aspect of his journey, and I think there's even a good chance that BoJack grapples with his old philosophy and maybe even considers killing himself in the final season. It looks a lot like BoJack's life is about to fall apart in Season 6 Part 2, and while Season 6 Part 1 left him at a pretty high point for the series, I think we can expect one more dive into a valley before the show ends. I don't think the show will have a traditional happy ending, but I do think it will be a contextually happy ending for BoJack, with him climbing another steep mountain towards a better future. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw BoJack up on the Griffith Observatory, the place where so many monumental moments in his life took place, and considered throwing himself off of it. I've seen a lot of people suggest this, given that the new title sequence for Season 6 shows him falling off of it into the abyss. I think it would be a much more meaningful and poignant ending if BoJack considered this and then rejected it. And that's mostly because I don't think BoJack killing himself really vibes with the messages or philosophy of the series. Yes, BoJack Horseman is real, raw, dark, and very sad, but I think it's also optimistic. I think the most important message coming from BoJack Horseman right now is that people can grow and atone and take responsibility and become better people. And if BoJack kills himself, what's the message of the series? That when things are toughest, it's best to take the easy way out? I really just don't think the series will end this way, and I don't think the ultimate message of the series can be that cycles of toxicity and abuse will just never end. I think it has to show that they can end, and that people can change. Because honestly, if people can't change, we're all doomed. I genuinely trust Raphael Bob Waxberg and the BoJack writing staff to make the ending of BoJack poignant and meaningful for our modern society. And honestly, that's all I really have to say about it. So I want to pass it off to you. Do you think BoJack can break this cycle, or will he just become another Secretariat? Please let me know below in the comments, and if you like this video, please do not forget to comment, like, subscribe, and stay tuned because as soon as those final 8 episodes drop, you can definitely expect me to be breaking them down. Alright, take care.
Johnny to Cellos!